early June, thousands of Australians will travel to one of the most dangerous countries in the world, a country where 18,000 people are murdered every year. And then there's the endless kidnappings, carjackings, rapes, robberies and torture. This is South Africa, set to host football's World Cup. And as it promotes the so-called beautiful game, the country can't hide its ugly underbelly.
South Africa is the most unequal nation on earth.
Now it's become a game. You're in my way. So to get you out of my way, I'm going to kill you. No one is safe.
We have incredibly high levels of crime.
It was part of survival on the street, you know, robbing people, breaking into cars, breaking into homes, you know.
What are the causes of crime? Why is the crime so gratuitous in its nature?
Welcome to South Africa 2010, home of the Football World Cup, where 15,000 people are carjacked every year, 19,000 houses are invaded, and where 50 people are murdered a day, more than the United States. Where armed security is a booming multi-billion-dollar business. Where violence is a harsh fact of everyday life.
I had a friend who decided after I got shot to arrange a lunch for 10 people, and of the 10 around the table, 7 of us had been shot.
In 2007, in Johannesburg, financial analyst David Bullard and his wife were lucky to survive a violent home invasion.
We just looked up and there were 2 guys in the house who we hadn't invited, one with a gun. There were actually 3 guys
Just there in front of you?
Yeah, they got in through the bedroom window, standing framed in the doorway. My wife let out a scream which I've never heard before or since, which was one of absolute terror, because you don't know whether they're going to play with you for 4 or 5 hours. You know, you don't know what is going to happen.
And then you were shot.
I got shot. In fact, they held their hand over my wife's mouth and said, if you don't stop screaming, we're going to shoot your husband. It was an entertainment value for the boys, I think.
What do you mean entertainment?
Well, I think they just wanted to shoot somebody. I mean, it was a bit of fun. They didn't need to shoot. I mean, they got what they wanted. But they thought, well, let's have a bit of sport before we go, so let's shoot.
It's a far cry from the euphoria that greeted South Africa's long walk to freedom and the promises of equality and shared affluence. A country confident enough to hold the World Cup in 3 weeks' time. But you don't have to travel far to find a more troubling reality. Millions of South Africans live in these so-called townships Australians would call ghettos. And with so much poverty and a basic lack of water, electricity and sewage, they are perfect breeding grounds for crime.
It was part of survival on the street, you know, robbing people, breaking into cars, breaking into homes, you know.
From the time he was 11, the streets of Cape Town were Damien Snyder's home. And until recently, crime and violence his tools of trade.
The first time I went to prison, I was 13 years old.
And then eventually you actually killed somebody.
I mean, I won't say I killed someone, you know. I defended myself, but in the process, I just got very annoyed because this person looked like he really wanted to kill me, you know. So I had to defend myself. Otherwise, it could have been me instead of him.
Here in South Africa, violence is colourblind. Everyone is at risk. Leslie Ellerback was 7 months pregnant when she was carjacked.
They asked me to get out the car, and I said, okay. I had the seatbelt on, undid the seatbelt, and being 7 months pregnant, you're not very agile. And he obviously thought I was moving too slow, and the gun went off.
I was in my mommy's tummy, and then the bad people shot my mommy.
You could see I was pregnant.
And that had no bearing on the little...
No.
They shot mommy.
They shot Mummy. Where did they shoot her?
Here.
How could they do that? And what happened to you?
They went through my back.
Your spine. Immediately after the attack, Courtney was delivered 8 weeks premature and born a paraplegic. Do you see Courtney as a symbol of violence in South Africa?
Yes. She's the youngest crime victim in South Africa. She wasn't even born yet and she became a victim. I mean, what does that tell people out there? That not even your pregnant people are safe. No one is safe.
I want those police to get those bad people.
Did police ever catch them?
No, the police only came 10 days later to my statement. 2 cars walked in. The one sat down, played with the TV remote, and the other one sat wrote my statement.
Is this typical of South African police?
Oh, yes. They sometimes don't even bother coming out.
To this day, her attackers remain on the streets.
I just think it's okay because they know for a fact I'll never get caught.
Do you think it's the poverty or is it racism?
It's racism. It's racism that they blaming us because they were the down and outs when the whites were running the country. Now it's a colour barrier swap and now they're getting up back for what we were supposed to have done to them.
You living in Alexandra, if you were involved in the struggle and you are still trapped in poverty, and suddenly you see your neighbor from 20 years ago, who was also involved in the struggle like you were, driving around in Mercedes-Benz, getting one government tender after another, it breeds resentment.
It's a complex argument, and racism is not blamed by all.
It doesn't justify the violence, but I think it sure as hell explains the anger.
Eusebius McKaiser is a Johannesburg talk show host and prominent social commentator.
Inequality, that's the big driver of violent crime. The biggest growing inequality is between poor black people and rich black people, which means that it's not even a matter of poor black people looking at rich white people and going, oh gosh, I better go and attack that white person. I think there's a level there of anger that is even worse than when you meet, say, a white person that you don't share any personal history with. So the race element is even more subtle in how it intertwines with the inequality stuff.
It's much easier in the afternoons to follow people home. As they get off freeways or busy roads on the way home, they relax. So they just follow them home and they target them in their driveways.
With the thousands of carjackings a year here, it's no wonder that you get a discount on your car insurance if you undergo a course with the National Hijacking Academy. Ex-cop Richard Brousseau owns it.
Isn't it funny, the closer you get to your house, the more relaxed you become. And at your house is where 68% of the crime take place. Everything comes down to awareness, and our awareness is not what it's supposed to be.
We took the hijacking prevention course, which includes a simulated attack. Yeah, so this is where you can be. In less than 15 seconds, the 3 men have hijacked the ute and are speeding away.
Now, in real life, if that was a real hijacking, you would have had a problem. 7 out of 10 men in South Africa are right-handed. You write with your right hand. So obviously, when you got out of the car, your hand movements were wrong. Your right hand went down for the safety belt catch. You could only place a firearm in 3 places inside a motor car. Most commonly, you would have thought you're going for a firearm. By undoing your safety belt, that click noise, it sounds exactly like you're cocking a firearm.
The Academy also teaches homeowners to watch out for seemingly innocent litter, colour-coded to tip off home invaders.
White could be flattened milk carton, piece of newspaper, even a cloth.